Welcome back to the Expat Review 2.0. My name is Rob, and I'm just an average guy that is looking forward to retirement. I'm 54 years old. I've decided that I cannot afford to retire in the U.S., and I'd like to have a better quality of life. So now I'm doing a lot of things that I can to build up and create things so that I can have a much better quality of life abroad. Now, with that being said, not everybody's me. Not everybody has time, experience, motivation. There's a lot of us out there that, time isn't. We're already at that age to retire, and you know what? Maybe we can't afford to, or you're just barely scraping by. You look at things and you're like, man, how am I going to do that abroad? Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you. You don't need $1 million to move abroad. Of course, it helps. But, you hear all these things about, oh, you can't live on $1,000, $1,500, $3,000. Well, you know what? You can live on whatever you can afford. You just have to be smart about it. So today, I gave it a little thought while I was at work. And I was thinking, man, let's say I'm like 63 or 64. Now, I live in northeast of the country. I live in the Rust Belt, more of a rural area. What if I didn't have any family? I was working a part-time job, but if I were to collect Social Security, I don't have any pensions, I don't have any 401k, but I've saved up. Maybe I got about $5,000-$6,000 in the bank. And my Social Security, if I were to take it now, would be $1,600. And you know what? I hate the cold, which I really do. So I can feel for this situation. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have any family. I don't have much of a social circle. My quality of life, I live in a very desolate area. I don't have many friends. I really, as I get older and I'm not as mobile anymore, do I really want to live in this type of environment? What are my options? Because all I see on all these channels are, people that, are cashing in their investments. They have $5,000-$6,000, and they're doing all these things. Well, I'm going to tell you what, $1,600 a month, you could technically do it. And there's 5 places I would tell you to look into. Let's get into them. Number 1. Now, I have to take my personal affection for Southeast Asia. That's where I want to live. That's where I want to have a family. So I'm going to take that out. So the number 1 place, in all reality, is in South America. Panama. Now, Panama, number 1. Why this works is because you have something called the pensionado retiree residency there. Now, you know what? You only need to be accepted for this program is $1,000 a month. And you know what? You have that and then some, okay? So it fits your income. They also offer, when you get this, because you are retired, this unlocks like a whole bunch of discounts, transportation, utilities, entertainment, and you know what? Some medical. Now, speaking Spanish, of course, definitely helps. But you know what? There's a large expat community. Now, the US dollar is the currency, which also helps out, trust me. They have good regional hospitals, and, you know, they have flights that are pretty frequent along Panama City. Now, the two places I was looking at would be like David or Boquete or Panama City. Now, you know what? The rent there, you're looking at $300 to $500, maybe a little bit more. Between internet and everything, you're talking about your electricity, maybe about $120 to $170. Now you got to remember, these are just numbers not pulled out of my butt, but these are numbers I looked up. So I can't really say I have any experience with this, but it's something to give you a start off. You know, I mean, honestly, you know what? With all the discounts and stuff like that, that's probably really good. And it's close enough, like I said, to fly back. Because, you know, some of these places I'm going to talk about are across the world. And even if you're saving up, if you want to come back or you need to come back for whatever reason, it's going to be awfully expensive too. This gives you options, okay? Now, the things I would watch out for, you know what? Honestly, private insurance gets tricky after the age of 74, okay? And especially if you have pre-existing conditions. So, you know, really look into private insurance. And this is anywhere, because I'm going to tell you, with international health insurance, those pre-existing conditions could bite you in the butt. And if you're not covered and you're in a foreign country, it's probably not good. So make sure that everything you get, you know, look into it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Number 2. Now, you got to remember, any place in South America has its highs and lows. And before, a few years ago, everybody was talking about this place. This place was great. Well, you know what? Last year or so, I've heard of a couple of different things where a little bit of civil unrest, but nothing like, you know, major. But country, Ecuador, okay? Why does this work? Well, there they got what's called, what is it? The Jubilado Pensioner, okay? This is a visa that requires 3 times their minimum wage. Now, I think their minimum wage is around $1,400. You're covered. You could get that. That's a good thing. I'm trying to think. You know, you have an excellent value of healthcare there. Healthcare is really good. It's walkable. Colonial cities, of course, you know, got a strong retiree thing. And that's what you're going to want to do anytime that you're looking abroad, especially when you're doing this on your own. You need to join up with expat groups. That's on Facebook, you know, all these different. Get in contact with people. You need connections, especially when you don't speak the language. Like I said with Panama, and what I'm going to say with any of them, you know what? Spanish is very helpful. Thankfully, it's not that hard to learn. You're going to get the gist of it, and of course, if the majority of people, you'll pick up on it fast. It's not a difficult language. Difficult language, I would say, is like Vietnamese. Holy cow. I have no clue. I know there's a lot of people that have lived there, visiting there, it really intimidated me, that language. But anyway, back to Ecuador. You know, your budget, you're gonna be able to get all the main things that you need within $1,000 to $1,500. You know, but you got to watch out. Like some places, like Quinza in Ecuador. It's very high up. I think it's like 8,300 feet. You know, that thin air is going to bother some people. And the further you move out, of course, the cheaper it gets, but you know what? The less English. So you're going to want to be making sure that wherever you go, you have some expats there, you got people to rely on to help you out with. And also make sure, this is the thing too, anytime that you are about to get a residency or anything, you got to make sure you're apostilled for Social Security. Now, if you don't know what that means, I want you to look it up. Put that on your little thing. I want you to write down being apostilled. Okay, that's going to help you, number one, for your visa, which you're going to need. And they require it, I think, in a lot of them. I know Ecuador for sure, but I think a lot of them. And on top of that, you're going to also want to make sure that your mail goes out, because once they know, Social Security knows that you do not live in the U.S. anymore, you have a new requirement. It's called proof of life, because they don't want you to die and have somebody collecting your Social Security for the next 60 years. So every year, you got to send in this paper. Now, they send it out to you, and you have to fill it out and send it back. So if you're living in a village that you might not get the mail, there's nothing worse than all of a sudden, where's my Social Security? And all of a sudden you're gone 3-4 months without it while you're trying to work it out. Because guess what? A phone call is probably not going to work it out with Social Security, because they're going to want you to come in. Ergo, at least you're not across the world, or it's going to cost you $3,000-$4,000 just to get back there to get your Social Security turned back on. Now, number 3, also in South America, like I said, I'm not doing the whole Southeast Asia, what I would want. I'm just looking at what is best for this person who doesn't have any real preferences, would be Colombia. Now, Colombia also has a pensionado. You need 3 times the minimum wage there. So, like, their minimum wage, oh my gosh, it's like something ridiculous. Like, in their currency, I think it's going to end up being like $995 a month, $1,000. You make that. Also, when you look at all your things, your rent, your, everything that you budget in, your food, transportation, stuff like that. Now, the cities there, Medellin, that has a great expat community, and I really liked it there. And the weather is good for year-round. Not too hot, not too cold. The whole Goldilocks thing. That's like really great. It's much more relaxed. You got to remember, anywhere that you go. Now look, are you going to live like a king? No, you're not. But I'm going to tell you what. If you live in a rural county in upstate New York with a population of 1,500 people, and for 5 months of the year, you're battling frigid temperatures, anywhere from several inches to several feet of snow, limited access, high rent, high food costs, high medical, high everything. Because even when you're on your Medicare, you got to have those supplements. And oh my gosh, everything costs money. And no matter what, the quality of life, you got to remember, this is not like, oh, I'm going to live. I'm talking about a better quality of life. And because you deserve it in your golden years. And if you don't have family, you don't have support, and at some point your mobility is going to decrease, your health's going to decrease, and being in that type of harsh climate with being isolated, I'm going to tell you right now, friendly people that might speak Spanish, you get hooked up with other expats, they're going to really, really, really help you out. And it's like, you know what? As for, things to watch out for in Colombia, you know what? You got to do some due diligence on like where you're going to be, and avoid the nightlife areas. Learn Spanish, but keep your street smarts. Things there can get a little bit, there's some great areas and not so great areas. But then again, people that worry about that, my God, you live in the US. I think you can figure out there's some not great areas, even in the rural places, What do you really have to lose? You really don't. And that's important. Now, let's get rid of South America, because that's all we've talked about right now. Let's talk about Albania. Albania, why does this work? Unique perk, honest to goodness, the number one unique perk. You're a U.S. citizen, you can stay up to 1 year visa free. Now, this gives you a very low risk type of try before you commit type, runway. Now, costs are still moderate compared to, Western costs. You got that Mediterranean vibe. The infrastructure is greatly improving from what I hear. Haven't been there recently. And you know what? I can tell you, there's some great cafes there. It's really, it gives you some vibrance. I don't know how to explain it, but walking through such an area like Skoda or Tirana, and if you get an apartment outside of the area, that could, it's affordable. You got to go outside of those posh zones. Like I say, all these are pretty much similar, like your utilities, your internet, and $90 to $130 altogether. Groceries, $200 to $350-ish. You know what? You're going to eat local. You got to go more to markets. You got to look at those type of things. You're not going to go out to eat at restaurants that cater to your Western ideas. If you want a cheeseburger or whatever, you want ribs that are, American, however you're going to pay. Your private clinics there, your medical, pretty reasonable. Now, in Albania, the healthcare is improving, but it's not like if you're going to Spain or Portugal. It's, a bit less. So, like, if you can, look into what's called medical evacuation insurance. Now, of course, what that's going to do is that's going to take you out and bring you into something that's very modern. Now, like I say, it is getting better, and by the time you get there, you're not going to die. But you know what? What are we talking about from, they're not, up to speed. They're maybe 20 years behind. Okay. So if 2025, if you had a heart attack 20 years ago here in the US and you go to that hospital, that's the type of care and the type of equipment and stuff like that, you're still going to be treated okay. A lot of people hear, it's way far behind. All of a sudden you think there's going to be witch doctors and stuff, and that's not the truth. Just, the equipment is more dated. But like I say, the doctors there, you have a whole country there. They're not all dying because, they break a leg. So it's not anything like that, And the free year there, honestly, if you don't like it, go to the next place. I'm giving you 5. It's not like it's going to be you're trapped and settled down. None of these places, I'm telling you to buy a place or anything like that. You're going to rent. You're going to be moving around and, finding cheap. You're going to be not, you're going to be living better than you would in the scenario I gave you. And honestly, that's like one of the biggest things. It's really, really one of the biggest. And of course, number 5, because, I love it and I got to bring it in. Going to Southeast Asia, we're talking about the Philippines. Why does this work for me? Number 1, English language. Because you know what? There's a lot of languages and that language barrier. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say English is widely spoken, now, I can tell you right now, it's widely spoken as a second language. You're going to be able to communicate back and forth, but you know what? Some things might get missed. That's why, like, if you become like an extrovert and you have like the great sense of humor, they might not get it all because there's a lot of nuances and things, but there's great communication. Now, there's cities like Dumaguete and Ilo, because those have very large expat communities, especially in Dumaguete. Oh my gosh. Well, you know that if you've looked at any YouTube blogger, my God, that's all they talk about. And I'm not really going to talk about Dumaguete because, like I say, I'm a little bit different. I'm okay if I don't have many expats because, unfortunately, I find a lot of expats, a lot of them, you have your baggage, okay? The things you hate about your life, divorces, things like that, not being able to afford anything. And these people, and they have their habits, they have their addictions, and they have their baggage. And when they go over, they still have their addictions, they still carry their baggage, except now they think they're rich because they can afford more. Even though they have the same amount of money, which isn't much, wherever you go, you have to realize, number 1, you are a guest. Number 2, you have to realize that these people do not have to accept you. And you're not going over there to change them. You are not going over there to carry your same attitudes, your same everything that you left the US for whatever reason. You know what? You're starting anew. That means you got to clear it up. I always talk about 3 things before you go that you got to make sure you have set: your health, your wealth, and your mindset. If you don't have all those set up, you know what? It's going to fail miserably. So they do have a retirement visa, the SSRV, but depending, now if you are a U.S. military veteran, number one, go over there. You only need a deposit of like $1,500. But now, if you don't, you got to have a deposit of $20,000. Now, if you don't have that, it's still okay, because you know what? You can still stay legally long-term, you know, with tourist visa extensions and stuff, but you got to keep up on that. And anytime there's a visa or anything, you got to remember, keep up on it. That needs to be paid before your next cerveza, your next Red Horse, your next San Miguel. You got to make sure those things are paid up. You got to look at health insurance, because you're not self-insured. You're not going to be able to afford that. And you know what? A lot of these places, you might ride around in a scooter or whatever, and the traffic laws seem like they're non-existent in a lot of these countries. And you know what? You're going to have dogs pulling out and running out in front of you. You're going to have people swerving. There's a good chance you could fall off, break a leg, break a wrist, whatever. And some places, it's inexpensive. Other places, it's not. But I'd rather have the insurance. What if you have a heart attack? You know what? That's still, the whole thing's going to cost money. But if you have that covered, and like I say, make sure you're pre-existing and stuff, you really got to look into that. You can't half-ass any of this stuff. You know, rents there are pretty affordable. You could also look at, for soft landings, everybody talks about Cebu or Manila. Personally, if you like larger cities or whatever, Davao, great. Cebu, you can get like a nice little condo or something like that you could rent off of. But for you, $1,600, you're best to keep things local, keep things a little outside the main rent district, and eat like a local. By the way, whoever said Filipino food isn't good never had Filipino food. Because now, granted, some of it, you know, I'm going to be hard pressed to eat their little, like, you know, the chicken's feet or whatever. Tried it. I don't understand how you eat it. You just sort of gnaw on it like a dog bone or something. But, you know, there's a lot of good things, and things that you wouldn't think. The chicken intestines on the street, and people say, oh, don't do the street food. No, do the street food. Be a little advantageous, because you know what? Imodium is cheap. Trust me, you get a stomach bug or whatever, get an antibiotic. Get over it. So, realistic range there, $800 to $1,200. What are you going to do with the rest? Don't drink it off. Don't blow it. Put it away for a rainy day, because you're going to need things. Things are going to happen. Now, you know what? You got to watch out for, like I said, the healthcare, you know. And if, like, you know, you're not around one of the 3 cities of Cebu, Manila, Davao, where they have their world-class hospital that you could be transferred to. Also look for a medical evacuation type thing, called air ambulance, whatever, to possibly ship you over to Thailand or something like that if you need serious care. Now, yeah, there's lots of other places. I could have picked out Thailand, stuff like that, but looking at the best possibilities for a guy like this with limited, you know what? he doesn't have any debt. Maybe he has about 5,000-6,000 saved up. Or like if he sold everything, that's about how much he would have. And those are 5 good places right there. Like I say, Panama tops, just because of all the discounts and stuff. It's real easy long-term retirement. The dollar's being used. And great expat community. It's one of the smoothest transitions, I'd say, from life in the U.S. over there. But you know what? Start learning your Spanish. It's pretty easy, though. All right. I think I covered this. You know what? Why don't you let me know down below? Because especially, this video's lasted 30 minutes. So if you've stuck around this long, please, you know what? Give me a shout out. Let me know what you think about this, because I am going to get to what I've been planning on doing, but I haven't really had time to do it because unfortunately I'm doing a lot of other things too. I work full time. I'm trying to start up a business. Now we're getting back into YouTube again. When am I going to get this? I get out of work 2 p.m. I come down here to the gym. I'm going to work out for a bit. Then I'm going to meet up with some clients. Going to start doing, social media management. Working on that. So AI. And when I do have time to be at home, we're going to get into a lot more. And we're going to have some great conversations doing podcast style. I think you're going to like it. All right. Like, subscribe, obviously. Take care. See you again real soon.